He is pathetic. That is what the internet whispers about Earl Campbell. The Tyler Rose of the Houston Oilers is now being discussed as broke. Split the screen. Jack Tatum, the most violent safety ever. Earl Campbell in his prime. The caption sits ugly. Earl Campbell broke and pathetic. You click this video to confirm what you already heard. But what if the entire premise is wrong? The story is seductive. A fallen legend stripped of fortune. But the 7 NFL legends who faced Campbell are not testifying to poverty. They are testifying to physical annihilation. They are testifying to the price of greatness. Before we go further, if this hits you the way it absolutely should, drop some hype on this video right now. Drop it immediately. Because what you are about to hear has nothing to do with a bank account. It has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with the price of being the greatest. Let us start with what the rumor claims. Earl Campbell is broke, financially ruined. This narrative spreads on social media like wildfire. People see him in a wheelchair and assume poverty. But they are completely wrong. The truth is simple and devastating. Earl Campbell is not financially broke. He is physically broken. Those are not the same thing. Once you understand that difference, you will understand why these 7 legends speak about him the way they do. Start with the money. Earl Campbell signed his first NFL contract in 1978. The Houston Oilers drafted him first overall. That contract was worth $1.4 million over 6 years. In 1978, that was astronomical wealth. It made him the face of the franchise. Endorsements followed, appearance fees followed. He was not some backup living paycheck to paycheck. Then came the real money. In 1991, the same year he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Earl Campbell founded Earl Campbell Meat Products. This was not a celebrity branding deal. This was his own company. He owned it, he controlled it, he kept the profits. Campbell developed the recipes himself. The company started with hot links, a staple of East Texas barbecue. For more than 30 years, this company has thrived. Walk into any major grocery store in the South and you will find Earl Campbell meat products on the shelf. G.E.B., Kroger, Walmart. They are everywhere. Order online and it ships nationally. This is not a novelty item anymore. It is a household brand. It survived because the quality was real. Campbell was obsessive about keeping out the garbage. No MSG, no trans fats, no fillers, just meat and honest flavoring. That commitment protected the brand from cynicism that destroys celebrity products. The financial analysis is clear. Earl Campbell's net worth today sits around $25 million. That places him in the upper echelon of retired NFL players from his era. Most players from the 1970s are struggling, not Campbell. His wealth comes primarily from his business, not his football career. When Campbell himself addressed the rumor, he said directly, "I would not want the public to feel sorry for me at all because I have more fun. I do more business. I do everything I want to do." He was not speaking like a man in financial distress. He was speaking like a man who built an empire. So if Earl Campbell is not financially broke, why are these 7 legends speaking about him with such somber tones? The answer lies in physics. Campbell did not play football in the traditional sense. He waged kinetic warfare. Every single time he touched the ball, he was weaponizing his body for impact. And his body was engineered for that specific destructive purpose in a way that almost no other human being in the history of professional sports has ever been. His entire physiology was purpose-built for the collision. That is what made him singular. That is what made him dangerous. And that is what eventually broke him. Earl Campbell stood 5 feet 11 inches tall. He weighed approximately 232 pounds in his prime. For a running back in 1978, those dimensions were not normal. His center of gravity was exceptionally low. His thighs measured 34 inches in circumference. Imagine a man that compact, that dense, that low to the ground. Now imagine him accelerating into contact instead of slowing down to change direction. This is the key. Most elite running backs are dancers. They avoid contact. Campbell sought it. In a collision, force equals mass times acceleration. Campbell maximized both. Every time a defender tried to tackle him, he became a high-impact event. He forced defenders to act as braking mechanisms for a 230-pound projectile coming at full speed. Defenders did not tackle Earl Campbell. They got run over by Earl Campbell. Under head coach Bum Phillips, the Oilers' strategy had a simple name: give it to Earl. In 1980 alone, Campbell rushed the ball 373 times. Over his first 4 seasons, he carried the ball more than 1,400 times. Think about that. 1,400 collisions, 1,400 impacts. The human body, specifically the cartilage of the knees and the discs of the spine, can only absorb so much shock. Campbell exceeded his body's capacity in 5 years. By his fourth season, teammates noticed the decline. The explosiveness faded. What remained was grim determination pushing a deteriorating machine forward. This is why the wheelchair matters. In recent years, Earl Campbell has used a wheelchair. He has used a walker. The public saw those images and assumed poverty. Social media took those images and created a narrative of abandonment. The reality is orthopedic devastation, spinal stenosis, arthritic knees worn away by 1,000 collisions. The wheelchair is not a sign of financial ruin. It is a sign of the price he paid. Now let us hear from the men who actually know. These are the 7 legends who stood opposite Earl Campbell. They saw what he did. They felt what he did. And they have spoken about it with consistency that creates an undeniable picture. The first is Bum Phillips. Phillips was the architect. He traded a massive haul of draft picks to Tampa Bay to secure the right to draft Campbell first overall in 1978. Phillips viewed Campbell as more than a player. He saw him as a surrogate son. The bond was intense and personal. Campbell wanted to please Phillips. Phillips exploited that desire to push Campbell to his absolute limits. Phillips's most famous quote about Campbell captures the era perfectly. "I don't know," he said, "but if he ain't in a class by himself, it do not take long to call the roll." It was cowboy wit. It was an admission that Campbell was singular, but underneath that praise was a darker truth. Phillips rode Campbell relentlessly. In 1979, when the team's quarterback got injured, Phillips refused to rest Campbell. Instead, he ran the ball through Campbell again and again. Campbell carried the Oilers to a 5-game winning streak. Phillips knew the cost. Years later, before his death in October of 2013 at age 90, Phillips expressed pride in what Campbell became. But he also expressed something else, a somber recognition of the toll the game took. Phillips did not leave Campbell broke, but he did oversee the dismantling of his knees. The second legend is Dan Pastorini, the quarterback of those Oilers teams. Pastorini and Campbell were the dual symbols of the Louvre Bleu era, a cultural phenomenon in Houston. Pastorini played through cracked ribs. He wore the first flak jackets. He knew toughness, and he respected Campbell's toughness above all else. But in recent interviews, Pastorini has expressed a poignant regret. "I wished I had thrown the ball to him more," he said. This is not a strategic critique. This is a humanitarian one. Pastorini realized that every handoff was like a car crash. Had they used Campbell in the passing game, where he would have faced smaller defenders in space, they might have extended his career. Instead, they ground him down. Pastorini recalls the huddles where the game plan simplified to one question. "Earl, can you make a first down?" The answer was always yes. But the cost accumulated. By the early 1980s, Pastorini watched the decline in real time. The endless pounding had eroded the supernova talent. Today, Pastorini is frequently seen at events with Campbell. He pushes his wheelchair, he embraces him. These interactions show that the bond formed in the violence of the 1970s endures in the physical reality of the 2020s. Pastorini does not need to bail Campbell out financially. They share something deeper, the trauma of creating greatness at any cost. The third legend is Lester Hayes, the legendary cornerback of the Oakland Raiders. Hayes was known for his squat stance and his use of stickum to intercept passes. He was cerebral. He understood the physics of the game, and he provided one of the most theological descriptions of Earl Campbell ever recorded. Hayes said, "Earl Campbell was put on this earth to play football." This quote resurfaced in documentaries for decades. To Hayes, Campbell was not a man playing a game. He was a biological outlier, a purpose-built organism. But Hayes also broke the silence about something else: the fear. Professional football players do not admit to fearing an opponent. Hayes openly discussed the dread of tackling Campbell. He described Campbell not as a runner, but as a force that required a lowering of intelligence to engage. Hayes understood that Campbell's current state was inevitable. A machine built for that level of output cannot run forever. Hayes respects Campbell profoundly, but his respect is focused entirely on gridiron dominance. He does not speculate about money. He testifies about physics. The fourth legend is Mean Joe Green, the greatest defensive tackle of his generation and the heart of the Pittsburgh Steelers' steel curtain defense. If the Oilers were the unstoppable force, the Steelers were the immovable object. The rivalry between these teams in the late 1970s, specifically the AFC Championship games, defined an era of football. Green's commentary is stark. "We knew Earl would carry," he said of their matchups. He was referring to games where Campbell played injured. Green recalls the 1978 and 1979 championship games as brutal affairs. The Steelers won, but they paid a price. Green has historically ranked Campbell among the hardest hitters in NFL history. That is not a compliment typically reserved for running backs. That is a category for elite defenders like Dick Butkus or Ray Nitschke. For a defensive tackle to call a running back one of the hardest hitters in football is a profound statement. It validates the physical toll from the other side of the line. It confirms that bringing down Campbell required a collective effort from the entire Steel Curtain defense, often resulting in injuries to the defenders themselves. Green speaks of Campbell with reverence. There is no mention of pity or financial struggle in his words. Only respect. The fifth legend is Cliff Harris, the safety for the Dallas Cowboys. Harris provides the most visceral description of what it felt like to face Earl Campbell. Harris delivered one of the most iconic quotes in football history. "He did not have the elusiveness of O.J. Simpson," Harris said, "but when you finished a game against Earl, you had to sit in a tub with Epsom salts." This is not a metaphor. This is a description of the systemic nature of the pain Campbell inflicted. It was not a sharp pain from a cut. It was a deep, bone-weary ache that required chemical treatment to alleviate. Harris played against the greats of that era. He singled out Campbell as the most punishing running back he ever faced. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If Harris needed Epsom salts to recover, Campbell's joints were absorbing the same force repeatedly, night after night, season after season. The sixth legend is Pete Wysocki, a linebacker for the Washington Redskins. Wysocki was known for his reckless abandon on special teams. He died in 2003 at age 55. His testimony is perhaps the most haunting when viewed through the modern lens of chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Wysocki delivered the defining quote regarding the neurological cost of tackling Earl Campbell. "Every time you hit him, you lower your own IQ," Wysocki said. In the 1970s, this was likely received as tough guy humor, a way of saying Campbell hit hard. Today it reads as a diagnostic prophecy. Wysocki was articulating the reality of subconcussive trauma. He recognized that collisions with Campbell were not just hurting the body, they were damaging the mind. Players knew on some level that they were trading cognitive function for gridiron glory. The rumor of Campbell being financially broke is trivial compared to what Wysocki was describing, the potential for being broken neurologically. The seventh and final legend is Jack Tatum, the Oakland Raiders safety known as the Assassin. Tatum was the pinnacle of 1970s defensive violence. He died in 2010. His interaction with Earl Campbell is legendary. The story centers on a specific collision at the goal line. Tatum met Campbell head-on. It was an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. In almost every other instance of Tatum's career, the ball carrier stopped or went backward. Against Campbell, Tatum was the one who was repelled. Campbell ran through the tackle and knocked Tatum backward into the end zone for a touchdown. Tatum later joked, asking if anyone got the license plate of the truck that ran over him. This collision is the visual thesis of Campbell's career. Tatum was the most feared hitter in football. Campbell dismantled him. The brokenness of Campbell today is the accumulated debt of winning collisions like that one. Even a truck eventually wears out its suspension. So we have established the money is real. $25 million. A successful business, independence, security. But we have also established the physical cost, the wheelchair, the walker, the decline that happened in real time on the field. These 7 legends testify to the violence that created the disability. None of them testify to financial ruin. But there is one more silence that needs to be broken. And this one is real. And this one Campbell actually addressed himself. The physical pain documented by all 7 legends led Campbell down a dark path. To manage the agony of his spinal stenosis and arthritis, Campbell was prescribed painkillers, specifically OxyContin. He developed a severe dependency. At one point, he was taking 10 pills a day washed down with beer. This was the true breaking point in his life. Not a bank account balance of 0, but a loss of control. A broken spirit following a broken body. In 2013, Campbell went public with his addiction story. He detailed his rehab. He detailed his subsequent sobriety. He broke his silence to warn others about the dangers of prescription opioids. This narrative arc is the real story of Earl Campbell. Triumph, pain, addiction, recovery. The broken financial rumor is a lazy corruption of this much more profound struggle. So what is the truth? Earl Campbell is not broke. He is wealthy. He is not abandoned. He is respected by every man who ever faced him. He is not destitute. He is a survivor who converted his physical sacrifice into economic security. That is rare in the history of professional football. He is physically broken. He relies on a wheelchair every day. He has battled addiction. But he is not broke. He is a living monument to what it costs to be great. He is a warning to younger players. He is a survivor. And that is worth infinitely more than money. If this video hits you the way it should, like it. Subscribe to the channel, comment below. Tell me what you think about Earl Campbell's legacy. Not his bank account. His legacy, his sacrifice. Because that is what these 7 legends were testifying to. That is the silence that was finally broken, and that is a story worth telling.